Right. You come from collective night data consciousness. You're an inquiry which forms a life cycle, a query that you will answer through the cycle of your existence. Okay? Your soul comes in and it's given a body, a physical vessel. Think Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. You've got the masculine aspect and the feminine aspect when it splits through polarity. Okay, you're given this. But the soul has to give everything back when it goes back to collective consciousness. All it actually owns is pure data or perspective. So although you have a body, you might buy a house, you might, have kids, you might get a dog, you might buy cars, whatever. You're giving all that back to the matrix when you die, because those things aren't real. They're down here in the material. When you go back to collective consciousness, when your life cycle and your query ends, you give all that stuff back. So we don't actually own our person. Sam owns X, whatever I own, okay? But Sam is not the name of my soul. That's the name of my complex, my physical vessel, my ego personality, okay? It's still divine, it's still beautiful, it's still wonderful, but it lives in the box so it can exist in the matrix, okay? That's what I'm known as in there. Now my soul only has perspective. It doesn't actually care about any of this bodily function, or these are just a way to carry out a carbon copy of the creator conducting a specific inquiry, which is me. Okay, so our soul only has perspective. And how do we travel with perspective? Well, perspective is just our place within a certain structure. So let's say density. Say we have the material, just as an example, the intellectual or the informational, and then we've got the ethereal. Ethereal, okay, my spelling's bad. Okay, so we've got these densities here, and what we're talking about when we're looking at perspective is how far through these densities can our perspective travel. Is it limited to the material world? No, because we're all on the internet and we all spend a lot of time now in this informational world that sits above the material. It's not materialized, but we all reinforce it. So although I can't touch the internet, we all agree it's real, and it has become an extra portion of humanity's structure. It's an extra density that we have made, purely informational. It's a place where information can travel. We all agree that it exists. Just because I can't see the internet, I know it's working and I know I can post this video. So, and then we've got the ethereal. And sometimes we don't want to believe in that, but it's just like not believing in the internet. It's just because you can't see the physical structure with your material eyes doesn't mean that it's not there. So perspective is the ability to travel through these dimensions. And if you want to simplify it just in the matrix, the ability to perceive higher levels. Like the Illuminati. I like that name. Light, does it mean light bringer or whatever? Yeah, it means light in some form anyway. Light giver maybe? But so I've heard, if you're a posh celebrity, you can go to them and they'll give you knowledge, a higher perspective. And then you can have whatever material things you want, because your perspective is up here and you can build them in the material for yourself. Once you know how this functions, because you've travelled in perspective, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so the distance we can travel, because it is travelling, we're travelling through different dimensions of being, that takes energy. And how is energy manufactured? We can manufacture it within, through the masculine and feminine, or we can get it over here through the matrix. Okay? And all energy is light, God, collective consciousness, or pure data. So to harness the highest perspective, a perspective is like a rocket. It's exactly, that's the worst rocket ever, isn't it? A kid's rocket. Anyway, perspective is just an ability to fly between dimensions, travel the avenues, go back and visit God, find out your query, go and visit other people in ethereal terms, you know, do, I don't know, what else, read energetics, or to play in the ethereal realm energetically without having to move your physical vessel. You can use your rocket here of perspective. Okay, but rockets need a huge amount of fuel. So basically, if we want to have a really high perspective, and a high perspective is just harnessing more collective consciousness and the ability to house that intellectually in the informational realm and materially by acting that out in the material, but it's power in the ethereal. It's getting all the way out of Earth so you can see Earth better. Okay, so to harness the highest perspective, we need unlimited amounts of energy, and we need to increase our capacity to hold light. And the only way we increase our capacity is by aligning the two aspects which we've talked about, living in authenticity, or clearing distortion. So that would be your shadow work. Shadow work is just removing shadows, areas that are devoid of light, from within the self. Like, I was an orphan, I didn't have any parents, nobody loved me. I'm not lovable. The distortion there is I am unlovable. Because the people who should have loved me more than anything just didn't. So that distortion sits there. And when we do our shadow work, we realise that wasn't a problem. That was perfection in motion. That wasn't an issue that has made me and shaped me into what I am so that I could carry out my divine query. My parents did not love me. They didn't love themselves enough to engage in that experience. Okay, so we can either increase our capacity for light through alignment, or we can increase the amount of space we have to hold light by doing shadow work and removing old distortion, simple, silly old beliefs. Like, I don't know, I'm too tall, you know? You're exactly tall enough, don't be ridiculous. Too tall by whose standards? Like, does a cat worry that it's not cat enough, you know? Does it, like, Toby never worries that he's being too much of a dog. You know, it's just stupid. So when we start getting rid of the ego the Matrix has given us, telling us we have to be this way or that, we remove distortion. And then the more light we contain, we just naturally float to the top of this. Because everything's frequency, and down here, it's really dense. And frequency is just the amount of times this is oscillating. Now, to become hard, solid material like this, has to be oscillating hardly anything. It has to be really slow, very dense material. Light that's so covered by distortion that it becomes a table or a radiator or a person. So in this dense area here, if we're vibrating really fast, it just it shoots you up here because you can't exist down here. You'll know yourself if you go out and you're in a really wonderful mood and you meet loads of miserable people, they're like, oh, fuck off, go away from me. Or you'll just become miserable as well because you can't sit down here in the denseness. When you're housing loads of light, you just naturally rise up. And what's rising up is your soul, your perspective, your ability to see. Because then you can see down. Your perspective is much wider than when you're down here looking up. Think of an ant like on the side of a building. His perspective, that building could be the size of the earth. He'll never know. But when he was able to take his rocket, move himself out of Earth, just to look back and see that actually Earth is one of many planets and we're not, that important, and there are other things, and, the struggles of humanity are relatively small with regards to everything else in the universe. So to harness perspective, a higher perspective, which is just to contain more light, again, as always, we need to increase capacity by living in authenticity and finding alignment with ourselves, and moving any corrupt structures in there, like that say that you're not worthy, that say like there's anything wrong with you. There's nothing ever wrong with you. You can act like a shit, yeah. You can be asleep to other people's feelings and just be a dick by mistake sometimes, or purposefully, just because you're hurting inside. But at the end of the day, you're just being a shit. You're not really a shit. You're really light, love, and truth. And you're just feeling a bit down and your vessel isn't spinning fast enough. So lots of love. Find some perspective. Love you. Bye.